Hello, I'm Sayakat Cosplay and welcome back to my channel. A question I get asked quite often is, how did I get into cosplay? Or how did I get started in cosplay? What did I do to get started? And my canned answer is, I got started in cosplay about 5 years ago in 2015. That's a very short version of the story. There's a much longer version of the story. There's a much more complicated version of the story, a much more complex version, which I'm going to tell today because I threw my back out earlier this week and I haven't been able to craft. This is one of the joys of getting older and being an older person who cosplays. And by older, I mean not that old, but I'm old in cosplay years. So let's go ahead and get into my cosplay journey. Let's get in the Wayback Machine of I'm a little kid. I have been making costumes pretty much as long as I can remember. When I was a little kid, my mom actually made me my own costumes for Halloween. I remember when I was 5, I was a purple cow. Don't ask me why I wanted to be purple cow. I was a purple cow. And over the years, she made me more costumes, and eventually I wanted to be the one who made my own costumes, which started out with me cutting holes in a sheet and running around as a ghost, which I'm pretty sure every kid has done, but I was proud of myself for cutting my own holes out of a sheet and running around as a ghost. And that evolved over the years into learning how to make my own dress or props or lots of different things at this point. However, in high school, when I could no longer trick or treat, or wasn't supposed to, I started making my own costumes. At that point, my mom was teaching me how to sew, and she was teaching me the basics of how to learn how to follow a pattern, and I started making my own Halloween costumes. My birthday is close to Halloween, so I'd always have a Halloween-themed birthday party, and I'd want a costume for that birthday party, so I'd make myself a nice something. And in junior year and senior year of high school, I made my own costumes, and actually there is a photo in my high school yearbook of my senior year costume that I wore to school. This is kind of where my cosplay journey really starts, is senior year of high school. This is in the Wayback Machine of 2002. I actually have my senior year yearbook, and there I am. That's me. Oh yes. Right there. Lovely, lovely. I don't even know. That was supposed to be a version of an assassin from Diablo 2. I made a top out of an old pair of pants. I made my armor out of cardboard. I thought that tribal tattoos were a really cool thing, so I used a whole bunch of eyeliner to put them all over myself. This was 2002. Please forgive. That was high school. And then I went to college, and I continued to make my own Halloween costumes. I would actually go home over the summer and plan out my costume. So I would make my costume over the summer at home because my mom had a sewing machine, and I could have my dad help me fabricate stuff, and I would bring it with me when I went back to college. My freshman year, I didn't plan so much because I was just like, oh my god, I'm going to college. I was Trinity from The Matrix. Sophomore year, I made myself a demon costume. There's no pictures of that exist. Junior year, I was Willy Wonka from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the 2005 movie, because that was my junior year of college. It was 2005. I think I have a picture of that somewhere. If I've found it, I will put a picture of it over here. I had my dad help me with the cane. We actually took a dowel and stuck it in a drill press and then ran the drill press to sand it down to become more narrow. I don't recommend doing that. It was very dangerous. Then senior year of college, I decided I wanted to be a warlock, a human warlock from World of Warcraft. And I actually had my dad help me weld a back piece metal thing, and I think I have a picture of that somewhere, which I'm going to throw up here as well. I also made a costume for my friend who was my Void Walker. I graduated college and ended up going to graduate school for my PhD in biology. And I was in school for quite a number of years. I entered in 2007 and graduated in 2014. So almost 7 years. It was a long time. However, I kept making costumes in grad school for Halloween. And they got more and more elaborate. They got bigger, they got better, they got more like cosplay and less like costume. In 2007, I made a fairy costume, which I ended up wearing around the lab that I was rotating in, and I think I have a picture of myself in the lab in that costume. I had a lot of that costume until recently, and that was, 13 years old. Well, side note, when I graduated college, my parents gave me my first sewing machine that I just replaced last year with this one, and a dress form. They knew me pretty well. I don't think that's something you normally get your kid who just graduated college and then is going to grad school for science as a graduation present, but it was what they gave me, and I'm very grateful for them for encouraging my creative endeavors. I've always been a really artsy person. I was a really artsy kid. I was always drawing, painting, and making costumes. Like, I learned how to sew when I was pretty young. I learned how to knit when I was pretty young. And I'm completely self-taught, except for what my mom taught me when I was a little kid. And so it's just kind of snowballed from there. I've never gone to school for any of this. I went to school for science, which is different, but not, it's similar. But anyway, in grad school, I continued to make costumes. In 2008, I made a dark helmet costume. In 2009, I made a Marie Antoinette dress. In 2010, I made Cora from Tron Legacy. Don't have a picture of that one. 2011 was when I made my original Kerrigan cosplay, the first version of it. And I made it as a Halloween costume, and I wore it to hand out candy in, and ended up scaring the ever-living bejesus out of most of the people who came up to me to get candy from me. And I was like, this is really fun. I'm kind of being a really, kind of scary, awesome character person. People really liked getting candy from me. It was a lot of fun. 2012 was when I made my original Commander Shepard costume. I made that for Halloween as well. And at that point, I was kind of getting towards the end of my PhD. I could kind of see a light at the end of the tunnel. I was starting to write my thesis in parts. I was starting to figure out what what my dissertation looked like. And in 2013, a friend of ours invited us to go to Baltimore Comic-Con for a day. I knew about cons for a long time. My sister actually accidentally went to the first ever Anime Boston in 2001 or 2002. I don't remember what year it was. And she actually was the first one of us who cosplayed. She went to the second annual Anime Boston as Vash from Trigun in the Wayback Machine of either 2002 or 2003. She didn't continue to cosplay though. That was kind of like a one-off thing in high school for her. And I've known about Otakon and other cons for quite some number of years. I was never really interested in going to cons. I didn't really get the appeal for a long time. And then our friend invited us to go, and I decided I was going to dress up. I was going to wear my Commander Shepard costume that I had made the year before. Because I had the costume, and I was like, why not? It'll be fun. I get to, wear this costume more than once, because previously I was wearing these costumes once a year on Halloween and putting them away and then never wearing them again. And we only went for a day. I think we went on a Saturday, and people kept stopping me for photos, and I was like, whoa, this is cool. And I got my photos taken for the local news, and lots of people were really excited to see my costume, and they thought it was really great. And I'm like, oh, okay. But then another year passed because I was finishing my PhD, which takes up a lot of time. There's not much room for doing much of anything else during that time frame. So I eventually defended my thesis. I dissertated, or whatever you want to call it. I finished in summer of 2014, and I decided that I was going to go back to Baltimore Comic-Con that fall and compete in the costume contest. And I decided to make Tyrael. So this costume was originally made in 2014. It was the first time I ever worked with Warbler. High learning curve. And it was the first time I did a lot of stuff in a costume. Not the first time I put lights in a costume, but it was a costume that was kind of the springboard for a lot of what was eventually to come. So I went to the costume contest, I entered, and I ended up winning my division. So at the time, the costume contest was divided into men's, women's, best in show, kids, and groups, or something like that. I ended up winning the women's division, and it kind of was like, oh, maybe I'm kind of good at this. Maybe this is something I could do as a hobby. And with my PhD done, I had a lot more time on my hands. I had free time for probably the first time in forever. So I kind of went and was like, oh, cool, what other cons are in the area? I had no idea about social media at this point. Like, I had a Facebook private page. I had an Instagram that was just me taking photos of scenery. Nothing. Nada. So I eventually found out about KatsuCon. At the time, I found out about it 2 weeks ahead of the con. So I couldn't buy tickets beforehand because like ticket sales had closed. So we went on the Friday of KatsuCon to get tickets for Saturday because I'm kind of local so I can drive back and forth. I ended up wearing my Commander Shepard to KatsuCon on Saturday, and it was the most ridiculous experience I've ever had. If you've ever been to KatsuCon, you might know what this experience is like. There's costumes everywhere. Everybody's in costume. There's photographers everywhere. There's just, it's overwhelming. And I was only really there for a day in costume. People kept asking me for my social media, and people was like, do you have a card? Do you have a website? Do you have a Facebook page? And I was just like, I'm completely overwhelmed. So KatsuCon of 2015 was the con which kind of started everything. So even though I'd been making costumes forever, I'd been doing all these kind of cosplay-y things for a couple of years beforehand. KatsuCon of 2015 was kind of where everything snowballed and took off. I started my social media pages. I started planning going to more cons. I started like figuring out what I wanted to do. Like, I could make more costumes than just one a year. Holy crap. And from there, I started going to more cons. I think in 2015, I went to 6 cons. And every year since, I've been to somewhere in the range of 8 to 12. Except for this year, thanks COVID, I've been to 3. That was before everything shut down in March. I went to MagFest, Animore, and KatsuCon of 2020. Those are the only cons I've been to this year, and the only cons I will go to this year. So this is a light year of only going to 3 cons, but thanks, pandemic. And so ever since then, I've been going to cons. I've had social media. I've been making friends. I've competed a couple more times, most recently in TwitchCon 2019. And it's been kind of a wild ride. I graduated from grad school thinking I was going to go into teaching. And I did for a couple of years, but then I decided I was going to strike out on my own and become my own boss. And I've been cosplaying as a full-time cosplayer. This is my job for the last 2 years now, and it has been an incredible experience. It's very stressful. There's a lot that goes into being a full-time cosplayer, which is a different video, by the way. And that's my journey into cosplay. That's my story of how I got into cosplay. That's it. The short answer, which I said earlier, is I've been cosplaying for about 5 years. The long answer is I've been doing this basically my whole life. I've loved costumes since I was able to put on a costume and remember putting on a costume, basically. That's my story. Thanks so much for watching, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to catch all my future content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys in the next video.